هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان والأنوار تدور هذا رمضان.
All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. I humbly ask Allah Ta'ala to raise the rank of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his kind al and companions, and to protect his nation from that which he fears for them. Inshallah, we will start with section number 8 of this chapter, that is the chapter of purification. Now, section number 8, that is titled Prohibitions while in a state of ritual impurity. Bismillah. The author rahimahullah said, the one whose wudu was invalidated is prohibited from 4 things. So, when one's wudu is invalidated, meaning he is now in a state of minor ritual impurity. We explained there is a state called major ritual impurity, that is janaba, and minor ritual impurity when one's wudu is invalidated. Now in this chapter, in this section actually, we are going to discuss what are the things that are prohibited upon the person who his wudu is invalidated. Okay, so the one whose wudu was invalidated is prohibited from 4 things while in the state of ritual impurity. What are these things? Number 1, prayer. He is not allowed to pray without a wudu. One is not allowed to pray without wudu, even if that prayer is a funeral prayer, salat al-janazah. He is not allowed to pray the funeral prayer without wudu. That is 1. Number 2, circumambulation around the Kaaba. Also, a person whose wudu is invalidated, he is not allowed to circumambulate the Kaaba because that needs wudu as well. Okay? So, let us say, for example, if there is a case where a person, he started circumambulating around the Kaaba and his wudu was invalidated after let's say the 3rd round. He can't continue, he needs to stop. And he needs to go perform wudu and then come back, continue from where he stopped. That is the second one. Number 3, touching the mushaf, its edges and its cover, which is connected to it. That is also prohibited upon the person whose wudu is invalidated. Number 4, carrying the mushaf, even with a barrier. That is also not allowed without wudu, even with a tissue. Even with a tissue, that is the meaning of even with a barrier. The author rahimahullah said, and the junub, that is one who had sexual intercourse or emitted mani, is prohibited from 6 things. So in the previous slide we spoke about the prohibitions upon the person who has his wudu invalidated. Now the person who is in the state of major ritual impurity, not minor ritual impurity, but major ritual impurity, meaning he had sexual intercourse or he emitted mani. What are the things that he is not allowed to do? Now, the same 4 things, he is prohibited from doing them, but there are 2 more things. We'll speak about them. So, prayer, he is not allowed to pray while he is in the state of major ritual impurity. He is not allowed to circumambulate around the Kaaba, circumambulation around the Kaaba, number 2. Number 3, touching the mushaf, same thing. Number 4, carrying the mushaf. All of these, we've covered them in the previous slide. Now, staying in the masjid and going back and forth in it, not merely passing through. So, one is not allowed while in the state of major ritual impurity to stay in the masjid, to stay in the masjid. Now, this is what he just mentioned. Now, what does he mean by not merely passing through? How would this happen? Just passing through. Sometimes we have mosques that have 2 doors, and be careful. We are speaking about a mosque, not an Islamic center or a musalla or a place like a room which people are used to pray in it. We are speaking about a mosque that has the judgment of a mosque. One is not allowed to stay in the mosque and go back and forth in it while in the state of major ritual impurity. However, some mosques, they have 2 doors, and some people might choose to pass from one door to take a shortcut. Like they don't want to turn around the mosque. They would take a shortcut, pass from one door, enter from one door, and then pass through the masjid and then exit from the other door, right? That is allowed. This is the meaning of not merely passing through. So he is allowed, even if he is in the state of major ritual impurity, just to pass through. Enter from one door, exit from the other door. Okay? Not to sit or stay in the mosque, not to go back and forth, just to pass through. Number 6, reciting the Quran in a way that he hears himself. So, if he merely moves his lips without hearing himself, then it is not forbidden. So, if he is reciting in an audible level in a way that he can hear himself, that is haram. That is not allowed. It is a prohibition. However, making it in his heart, that's allowed. Or moving his lips in a way that is not audible, he cannot hear himself in it, that is also allowed. The author, rahimahullah, continues to speak about the prohibitions upon the female, the woman, who is in her menstruation period. Okay? So 9 things, he said, rahimahullah, and 9 things are prohibited by menstruation. So by menstruation and postpartum bleeding, and that is for sure specific for women. We spoke in the previous slide about the one who is in the state of major ritual impurity, and we spoke about the one who is in the state of minor ritual impurity. Here we are speaking about the woman who is in her menses period or postpartum bleeding period. So 9 things are forbidden, the same previous 6 that we mentioned, and then there are 3 more things. We will discuss them in this slide, inshallah. Again, the author, rahimahullah, said, and 9 things are prohibited by menstruation. Number 1, prayer. We explained it. Circumambulation around the Kaaba, we spoke about it. Touching the Mus'haf, we covered it. Carrying the Mus'haf, same thing. Reciting the Quran, that is with an audible voice. We explained this. Even if the only one who can hear it was her. If there is nothing that prevents her from hearing herself. Exactly the same that we've covered in the previous slide. Staying in the masjid, likewise, passing through it if she fears staining it. Now, there is an additional piece of information here that I would like to add. We spoke about the person who is in the state of janaba, major ritual impurity, that he is allowed, the male, he is allowed to what? To merely pass through the masjid, entering from one door and exiting from the other door, right? We said this is allowed. However, if a woman, she is in her menstruation period or postpartum bleeding period, and she fears to contaminate, to stain the masjid, she is not even allowed to pass through the masjid, right? So even this passing, entering from one door, exiting from the other door, this is also something she is prohibited from doing if she fears to contaminate, to stain the masjid. Number 7, fasting. Also, she is not allowed to fast while she is in her menstruation period or postpartum bleeding period. Now, number 8, for the wife to enable her husband to enjoy the area between her navel and her knees by sexual intercourse or other than that without a barrier. So, when a woman is in her menses, she is not allowed to let her husband enjoy this area between the navel and the knees without a barrier, whether it's sexual intercourse or other than that.
هذا رمضان شهر صفاء الروح فيه الإحسان